Hello guys, welcome to a new YouTube video. So in today's section, we are going to be working on array intersection, which is a leet code problem for finding two similar elements that are present in two different arrays. So what do I mean by this? So let's say we have um, an array that has the following elements in it. So we have two, one, two, three, and 4. And we have another array has 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in order for us to get the intersection of elements in this array, it should be values that are both in the first array and in the second array. It can be 3. Here we know that we have 3 in the first array, and we have 3 in the second array. We know that we have 4 in the second array, and we have 4 in the first array. So the answer, the result of these both arrays should be an array containing 3 and 4, basically. So that is what we are going to be solving today in today's own data structures and algorithm. So why is this important? So, this is like basic array manipulation or vector manipulation in Rust. We have vectors, we have arrays. There will be situations in the day-to-day job where you would have to manipulate a certain, array or a vector in a certain way to get a certain output. So this is such situation. So we'll be looking for the array intersection of two vectors or two arrays or something like that. So let's quickly dive into it without wasting much time. Let's quickly dive into it. So now, in our previous class that we had, we created another file and used where we wrote our code in an implementation block and all that. So we're going to be doing the same thing, and we're going to be maintaining that same system for the rest of this series. So I'll just go ahead and create a new file and call it array intersection.rs. Good. So it's going to be very similar to the way we did it here. So first things first, I want to import it. So module, I'll call it array intersection. Yeah, so it's already imported here, and I'll save. So now in my array intersection file, I want to do some things. So thinking about the problem, how do we solve it? So first off, I want to create a struct, and because I'm going to be using an implementation block, so I'll make the struct to be public. I'll create a public struct. I'll call it solution is my struct, and I know I need an implementation block for this struct, and in this place I will now create my public function because I want it to be imported into my main public function, and I'll call the function intersection. So to be called intersection, this function will take two vectors, two arrays, or whatever. So the first one will be, I will just call it num1, and then let's use a vector. So sorry about that. So a vector is a vector of I32s. So the integer. So for integer in Rust, so a vector of I32, and the second value will be 2, also a vector of I32. Right. So at the end of the video, we know that we want to return something, and in Rust, if you want to return something, you use this arrow. So we want to return a vector I32. So and create our curly braces. So this is like the basic structure of how our function is going to be. So now let's think about how we are going to solve this problem. So first of all, we know we are going to receive two arrays or two vectors from our main function where we'll be defining it here. We'll be receiving two functions from our main, and we'll be using those, sorry, not two functions, two arrays, and we'll be manipulating those two arrays and be returning it. So one of the simple ways of doing this is using um, the hash sets. So we're going to be using hash sets to do this in a very, very simple and intuitive way. So first of all, we'll start by importing the hash set from the standard library and in something called collection in the collection module. So the standard collection module. So would go in. So let me quickly zoom in so I see. My previous video, people complained that my screen was too small. So I'm sorry about that. So I'll say use. So we want to get from the standard library, we want to standard library collections to get collections. Yeah, I want to get the hash set, not hash map. So I want to get the hash sets, hash set. So we have it here. Fact. So we have the hash set here, and um, using this hash set, so what we'll do is we've already defined our function, which takes in, like I've explained, two vectors, or can still take in two arrays of num1 and num2 as the input. And at the end of the day, we are going to return, um, you know, a vector or an array or something like that. So what we'll do now is we'll now create two hash sets, two hash set objects, and we'll call it HashSet1 and HashSet2 from what we are importing here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll say let hash1 let hash1 equals to the hash set. So the hash set itself. So we'll say hash set can be equal to the first value, so the num1, so the first value we are passing. So what we want to do is we want to first of all, because we know like it contains unique elements and all that. So what we want to first of all do is we want to first of all iterate through um, those elements in the array that we are currently passing. So I'll just quickly go ahead um, and write the code. But basically, we're going to be using a couple of values to really achieve what we want here. So the first thing we'll do here is we'll go ahead and say the nums1 dot want to iterate, so iter. And when we do that, we want to copy. So what we want to copy it, copy will I say a reference? We want to like clone each element, want to clone each element and then collect them back into the hash set, which would call an intersection. So, like when I write the code, you would understand what I mean. But let me just go ahead and quickly write it down. So now I'll copy it or clone it. So called clone. At the end of the day, we'll collect. So I'll still explain in details what I'm doing here. So we'll do that same thing for the second element we are passing in. So we'll call it hash2. Okay. Hash set. So we'll call it num2 2 dot star dot clone clone should be cloned dot collect. Remember to put your curly your this thing semicolon. So what we did here is we've created a hash set for the first for the first um, vector that we are passing into this intersection array. Also created another hash set for the second one also, and then is stored in hash one and hash two. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to find the intersection between hash one and hash two. And how we are going to do this is we are going to use the intersection, which is a method that is available on the hash set. So if I browser and I search for Rust intersection, click here. Yeah, so you see we have the hash sets. You can see the struct, the std, collection, hash, you know, hash set, and we have the intersection method in it. So this intersection method, you see, it takes in this, and it returns something for us. Basically, you can dive in into this documentation to understand how it works. But basically, what it does is that we'll be able to, you know, pass the first and the second hash into the first hash to see if we have any elements that are present in the first one that is also present in this. So what we'll do now is to find the intersection. So we'll say, we'll just call it let intersect. The intersect would be also pass hash set would be equals to our what, the hash one. So hash one dot, we want to question. So this intersection method, we want to call it, because it will return you know, it will return the common element between the hash one and the hash two. I will now call section. So we even see it here is already suggested, but I just like writing it out myself to encourage you to also write these things out, because the more you write them, the better you get at the syntax and the inner workings of the language, at least in my own experience. I always tend to write out those things by myself, so that I know them well enough instead of just using the suggestions. Although the suggestions do come in handy from time to time, but I do make sure I always write them by myself. So moving on, we'll now pass in our hash two into the hash one. So we'll say hash two, and then we'll use the cloned, and we'll then collect. So I will still come back to explain what all these things are doing. Right. Exactly. So I forgot to pass. So I need to pass this as a reference. I need to pass the hash two as a reference to this. And so I would pass a reference. I'll use the exactly passing it as a reference. So after that, this particular line is what does all the magic. This particular line of code does all the magic, because this is where we are doing the comparing. We are passing the first. We are on the first hash. We are saying the hash one dot intersection. So we want to find the intersection between the first hash and the second hash. Then after that, we would now convert back the intersection back to a vector, because we are going to be passing a vector. But if we are not passing a vector, if it was an array, it will not. There will be no need for us to do any conversion. So here, the next thing we'll do is we will now say let the res. So our res is now going to be a vec, and be equal to intersect. So the intersect dot, so into the iter. So we want to into score iter. So we want to then collect it. So because we are collecting it into the res. So it's that res that we will now return. Dot collect. Close it up. At the end, we want to return res, just like good old JavaScript. So with this, we've successfully been able to, find the intersection of the array. So I'll just quickly go over it again. So the first thing we did is we started by importing, um, the hash sets here from the standard library collections in Rust. Then we created struct, created an implementation block just for having consistent ways of doing things and having clean code and all that. Yeah. So after doing that, we now went ahead to you know first of all, so we define the function, and we know that this function takes in two parameters, which is the first one, the is it num1, yeah, the num1, which is the vector, and the num2, which is the second um, vector as the input. So at the end of the day, we know we are returning a vector of i32s. So then what we now do is we created a hash set from the value we passed in. We created a hash set from 1 and 2. So then to find the intersect, we now passed the hash 2 into the hash 1 from the intersection, which is a method on the hash set itself, the std collection.hash set. And after that, we converted back to a vector and we returned, basically. So here we are using the into the iter, this, to create an iterator from the intersection. So we're using it, sorry, from the intersect, I mean. So we do that. Then after that, we use the collect we use the this collect method to collect the elements into this vector, because we know we want to return a vector, which is the desired result. I say result, sorry. So the same thing too is happening here. So we iterate, we get a copy, a cloned copy, and we collect it into this hash set here. The same thing too we did here and here, collecting it into this place. So now we'll save this and go back to our main function. So in our main function, I'm just going to comment out everything here because this was from our previous class. So we'll just comment this out. And what we'll do now is we'll now go ahead and set up for our new array intersection code that we just wrote. So the first thing we'll do is we have to first of all um, declare our values. So we need a value. So I'll call it array1. I'll just call it array1. Inside this array1, I'll create a vector. So this vector will contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close it up. The vector of i32s, then I'll create a second one. So I'll call this array2, and I'll say equals to check this. So I'll start from 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Close it up. So yeah, so I now have my value. So these values I'm now going to pass into the array intersection method. Remember, I'm importing it here. So if I hover over it, I should be able to see. Okay, let me go up. Okay, it doesn't show me anything. Yeah, so you should be able to show. Okay, these are the public stuffs in that very module. Anyways, let's go on. So the first thing I will do now is to say the array intersection. So array underscore intersection. I want to get solution, and inside the solution, I want to get our method, which is the intersection method. So it takes in two values, as you can see, takes in two values, num1 and num2, which is going to be our array1 and array2. So I'll call this array1, and I'll call this array2. Yep. So since we know we are already returning something from here, and we are returning something from here, it's not going to be like the previous class where we had to use the print and all that. So what we'll just do here is very simple. what we'll do here is would say we'll do a very simple thing and would say um, would say let res be equal to whatever is returned from here. So just equate it this way. I would save. So we'll save, and after that we'll then print. So we'll say print. We call it results. That result would have res. Save this and run. Say go run. Okay, dot not found in HashSet I32. Okay, let me check what the issue is. Okay, into iter, not into inter. So that's the error. So yeah, so it's supposed to be into iter. Yeah, so that's my mistake. So I'll quickly clear this and do this again. So I'll say run. Yeah, so now you see we have our result. So we have 5, 4, and 3. So if I go back to the main, you see that we have 5 here, we have 5 here, we have 4 here, and we have 4 here, and we have 3 here, and we have 3 here. So guys, basically this is how we find the intersection between an array or a vector in Rust. So once again, I'll just quickly run you through everything. So if first of all we created here, we created two hash set objects, with integer of elements where we set them to hash1 and hash2. So we use the intersection method that is available from the hash set, which is now the hash1 that we're getting from here. We use that intersection method to find the common element between hash1 and hash2. So that's what we did. So the method returns an iterator. So we use the clone to clone each element, from the iterator, since the iterator produces references, and then we use the collector to collect them into a new hash set called the intersect. This. Then after doing that, we now finally converted our intersect into a vector that is called res, which we then returned from here, and finally imported here and printed and all that. So guys, this is how you find the array intersection in Rust. You might be wondering, why is this important? This is important because it's it might not be a question you might see in an interview, but basically it teaches you the inner workings of the language. Like methods like the intersection, you know, methods like the intersection, the cloned, collecting back into this, and that is collecting into the hash set, because this is an iterator, then a copy of this, or a cloned version of this. Then we'll collect everything back into this hash set, which is stored in this variable. And so you see how we are learning the inner workings of the language. Then also we also learned about the intersection, which is coming from the hash set, and how we cloned and collected it back into the intersects, which we now, converted back to a vector. So you also learned how to convert back to a vector. So these things can come in handy when you're working on a project and you need to manipulate the vector, the array in some certain ways. You can, take advantage of this to do that. So guys, thank you so much for joining me on this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.